interesting topic. Short background, Thinking Portfolio is we are a company with the SaaS service to project portfolio management that includes resource portfolio and time sheets, these functionalities, and we also have about 40 different other portfolios on our portfolio platform, such as a risk portfolio, NPD, R&D, process portfolio, service portfolios, application portfolios. But the project portfolio is today's topic, and especially resource planning and time management. Let's continue. Some of today's topics here go through benefits and opportunities that a good resource management and planning brings us, planning concepts and terms that are used once we're talking about resource management, how to identify and prioritize our key resources, bit of practical resource planning on daily, weekly, and monthly level, ability to abilities as a part of resource roles and resourcing roles, about resource pools, simplified pool management, how to do that, practical prioritization and mastering a bit of to-dos, monitoring, and also the time management techniques are ones that are covered during this webinar. So if you start with the benefits and opportunities that are there, we start with the efficient allocation of resources, maximized productivity, and the key is to have the right competence, right role in right task. And this is quite often a thing that is, if we will set up this in the beginning of the project wrong way, we are not able to change it. So meaning that we have over competence, for example, or we don't have enough competence, the project will then suffer or will get benefits from this decision. So very important, the right competence matches the right task. To make sure that we will staff proper way the project, and always remember that that over resourcing is not a productivity. It's not productivity. It's a root cause for many of the problems that the project will run during its life cycle, and change management, one of the change management challenges. So if they say overstaffed people doing things, there will be for sure, we know from the beginning that there will be problems heading. How to balance things, and understanding a sustainable work culture. So it's a part of well-being to have resources with the right workloads, and this is one of the key and reasons for people not to give them best if they are really overloaded. So sustainable work culture is one of the important issues once doing a good resource planning. Understanding kind of conditions and demands that are related to resource planning, and we know that change management is a very important thing. So over 50% of resourcing problems are related to poor change management. So it's very important to understand that every project will have changes, and we have to really be careful there that that condition is understood to be in every project, and a clear understanding that how resources are shared with other projects and activities. So to say that kind of resource dependencies are 80% of the challenges once we make a change management, and if it's not well thought, lots of shared resources and changes happening outside the project, it might be even impossible to do change management in your project. So very important to understand: are the resources shared, or are they fully kind of booked for the project? A bit of concepts and terms for what are related to resource management. Often we talk about allocation, and that is how we allocate resources that are not always just personnel. They might be also product lines, equipment, and budgets and such. It's the allocation is one thing. The capacity is something that often we talked about allocating capacity and follow up into utilization. And if we have a very high utilization of resources, it's something that might make change management and changes outside the project to be challenging when it happens, and even having a too low utilization of resources might, of course, run into productivity problems, and it's very important to understand if project, for example, changes and the scope of the project is less than we expected, but the work that the resources are still there. It will mean that we will have resources doing less work than was planned, and that's a utilization issue also to think about. It's not always over we are not always running over the resource budget. Also the scheduling thing is one of the terms, and it's important, and later on we talk about what it is on a daily, weekly, and monthly level, and what's there to be in your focus once you're doing the planning. And the forecasting is important, and that's one of the important things to optimize things. So if we can forecast, we can make changes before the things are actual daily issues to manage. And also understanding the factors that are related to resource. If resource has a skill availability issue, if there is a certification issue, if there is a compliance issues that need to be understood, if there is a project plan saying that a certain person or named person need to be from the beginning of the project into the project, and if it's agreed and we have a resource that cannot be changed, we need to have that understanding also in our resource planning, because that's something that limits the how to optimize resource management. And then more about the techniques of optimizing the utilization of resources. And these are the main terms and concepts related to resource planning. Then how to identify, prioritize key resources. Just a few steps to go through. Of course, it starts from the objectives of the project. What is the outcome we want to get? And this is good to remember. For example, if you have a project what is really on the idea stage or need stage, but not the solution understood, that would be a first control. You will find out that once you start to resource people, you are not able to put the right people into project if you don't have the right solution and the right objective understood. So the objective setting is important, and based on the objectives, tasks and things that need to be done, you will define all the required resources, what type and what roles they are in. And then you go to availability to see that do you have those resources available? Are the internal or external cost of the resource such that your project budget can handle that? And that is important to once you start to do the resource planning. So if you use resources that they have a higher cost that you have planned, or you have on your business case, you have a problem in the beginning. And if you have a shared resources, for example, always remembering that it brings shared resources bring a bit of excitement if those resources are tied to the other project or other activities and not available for you. And if you're using externals, of course, again, a question of costs and availability, and then the compliance and certification requirements. There might be that the project need to have a certain competence based on certificate on those resources that are working there. So you need to understand that before you start to prioritize and allocate resources. And once you prioritize your resources, the questions are: what's the criticality, dependencies with the other activities, and if you are using a resource that has a dependency to other activity that have a higher priority that your project, you will have a problem there. So I need to understand that your priority is understood with the resource that is shared somewhere else. Timing and cost benefits to be understood, that resources are prioritized with well planned manner. If you prioritize resource to an exact date or exact week, and that will occupy that critical resource for that month, because it's a certain week that you are taking out, and then other project cannot prioritize or cannot use the same resource. You need to understand that maybe your project need to carry some of the costs of the resource, because it's fixed at a certain time when the resource is used. And then the allocation and the request. It's very important that allocated resources are approved, and typically they are project manager is not the direct supervisor for resources, so allocation and requests that need to go to the supervisors and might take some time, but it's once you have the allocated resource, requested resource approved, it's important that the organization have that kind of culture that these resources are not used for some other projects instead. So that's how you you make sure that you get the best impact from your resource. And then the follow-up. So to start with, flexibility is the key to resource management. So you need to follow up and follow, for example, your time sheets and your actual hours to make sure that planned actions will be done in a timely manner. So if your status for resource planning shows green because you are not using resources more than planned, it does not mean that the situation is green. It might be that some of the tasks are not done or they are postponed later on, meaning that next month you will have a really red situation. So you need to follow up the actual hours and the plan. Good. Then a bit of practical resource planning through a couple of views. These are views from Thinking Portfolio to show you daily, weekly, and monthly kind of resource planning and thinking. So the first one is here telling the more like daily planning. So if you have, and once you have tasks, maybe hierarchy or individual tasks, you will do resource planning once you will point out certain person to do that task or milestone or work package. And so that's once you start to do resource planning on a daily and weekly level, you pretty much start to do task management. And that's something that is typically changing all the time. And it's, if you would do like the view here under here, this is a resource plan on monthly level. So once we do things on monthly level, we understand, and what we see here, we see a different project from the portfolio, different roles and different personnel on those roles doing a certain amount of work that is proved to be done on each month here. We can see some of these requested works are denied, and some of them need to be approved before starting. We see if there's we are overusing a resource on a certain month. We can have this kind of view, and on monthly level, this is typically easier to do because the change management is not so right away needed than if you do this on a daily or weekly level. So if we have the same view on a weekly level, it would mean that you would have a lots of change management involved with your project. And if you then have resources that have dependencies to other tasks or other activities or projects, you will have a lots of project management needed. So one, if you are able to do the good enough resource plan on monthly level and be flexible there, you would have less change management and less compromises to do. So if you are able to give a bit of flexibility to your project, of course, the change management is easier then, and task management could then be followed easier inside the month, and would make it more more easier to estimate how it flows. So if to put it into key, it would say that if you have a too kind of tight resource planning for project that is having a shared resources, or there is in the beginning of the project you have an understanding that there will be a changes during the project, you will have it's good to consider that can resource planning be more on a monthly level than a weekly approach. Then abilities as part of resourcing roles. So some views from Thinking Portfolio again. So each person. So we can now we have one person, and there's background information based on that person. There could be these competence areas for this person is some of them are a bit IT technical, but as an example, certain competence areas this person has current knowledge and target level for the person that where he is or her is heading to, and how significant is the knowledge and the competence. And once we have this kind of background information, based on that, we can decide that in which roles with this background this person can be taking responsibility of. And what else we have here, we can tell behind the person if, for example, certificates, if there is a compliance or other requirements saying that this project needs to have a person with the IPMA B certificate or some other skill, then we only look at those resources as the ones to be a part of the resource planning. Also good to remember once doing resource planning, if we have planned to get if we want to build up person's competence during the project, if the red one here on this competence radar is a fictive vision of that person's competence on certain competence areas, we could think that there might be one or two of these competencies that in a project we want to use a project as a training base for a person to reach a next competence level. But if the project is critical, if the one of the risk and a issue to be mitigated is for example, knowledge risk or not achieving a task because it's too complicated, then we have to make sure that we don't have gap between the knowledge and the needed skill that the person has. And once we have this kind of information behind our resource planning, we have again we have a good controls for and to make sure that the right skills, right roles and right personnel are involved. Without this kind of information, it's more feeling based. So this is that's a point I want to put this up, and also telling that behind a person in good resource planning, we could tell that what are the certain roles that it's been decided. Maybe person's personal development dialogue with the supervisor. It's decided that let's use half of your time to big heavy projects where you could be a project manager, IPMA A level, and test manager. Let's put half of your time on this kind of roles. And if we have that set up behind the resource planning, it makes sure that a person is then resourced 30% of all the time that is available for project for senior project manager roles. So having a competence, understanding of the certificates, understanding the way we want to build persons, competence to, and do we have some kind of strategic thinking with the key resources that way we want them to be used mainly. That if we have that information as part of the resource management, we will be there more on an excellence level. Sourcing pools and simplified pool management. A bit of like an earlier slide, we mentioned that a person has certain skills to be in a certain roles, and we could make roles based on these skills. We can make pools out of those, and what we see here a bit of visual of different kind of availability of certain pools, resource pools, but what's here more detailed is that we could have a certain resource pools based on all the personnel what we have in our resource planning who could be in a role of senior project manager or a test manager, and that will bring overall availability of that kind of role with all the personnel that we have for the projects. And we then have an understanding for the future to estimate, to optimize that what kind of a knowledge there is available. And once we are doing planning of project proposal or project charter, we could already on that level have an understanding that what kind of resources we have available before making a decision that the project charter is fine, let's start planning, and deadline is there. And if we go to planning stage too early before understanding the overall availability of different kind of resource pools we have, we might start pushing a project to planning state with the situation that they say no resources that we can plan with. So this is then giving more quality for decision making for early on for the proposal state, for the charter state, and not just realizing that on a planning state that we have some gaps there with the knowledge and goals that we have on our business case or on our project. Good, and this also gives an understanding of that making sure that we are not using a senior role people or skills on maybe an easier project to save the senior skilled resources for the heavy and more complicated project. This might also give us an understanding of if we want to really go ahead with the project or program that really needs more skills, to split that into projects that could be executed as maybe with the less risk and maybe bit of not senior project manager, so helps you also a split project or program in that way that your skills are there. Okay, practical prioritization and mastering to-do lists. Few ways of looking at prioritization. Of course, the first thing is to prioritize the project or the program itself, which is a cost-benefit risk analysis, and make sure that the project itself has a high priority. If it's a project that has a high profile, and we want to prioritize that. And once that is set up, and we go to planning state with the different tasks related to project or the work packages, we can also go through prioritization, that what are the critical tasks of that project, that is the project but we see critical anyway, or high priority, high profile project. And these critical tasks could be then kind of defined based on, for example, that a task has a dependency into another project, for example, or if it has a critical path to another work package or other task, and then we have an understanding what are the critical tasks there, and we can prioritize them to either to team of resources or to individual person to go through to execute the task. So prioritization starts from the understanding the projects, high profile or not, and then understanding the priorities for the tasks. And a typical critical task is, of course, the dependency has to be executed on certain time, cannot be done next month. There need to be a certain person on that critical task, for example. So you need a certain competence related to that, and that makes task critical. And then once you look at all the critical tasks, those are the ones that the project manager or the steering group or the program manager needs to follow up. What are my critical tasks, and are they resourced? Are they to secure that there's all the possibilities to execute the task. And then monitoring and reporting, completed working hours. This example tells that each person needs to and I recommend it daily to report the actual work done, actual hours against projects that are done, or if earlier slides we had tasks that are related to a person, or you report that task to be done with a certain amount of hours. And good task planning also has a bit of understanding of how many hours the task takes, and once you report that how many hours you've done, you have a quite soon understanding that an early warning signals if tasks are lacking or taking more time than they expected, and we start to right away mitigate, especially if it's a critical task. So daily reporting hours, half an hour is a level that typically people are able to do, but it's important to do it every day, not just weekly, because it won't take you more time to do it later. It takes you exactly the same time. Why not do it right away? What's here is that we have a resource plan here for certain projects or programs. Resource plan for the people needed, and then we have the understanding of hours done, and important to follow, as earlier mentioned, that things are happening when they were resourced to happen. If that's something that will change, it will have a big effect. If we are using the resources in a later states than it was planned, all the dependencies and so on will be immediate change management towards other projects. So for that reason, our reporting important. Of course, our reporting sometimes is a part of people's payrolls, or if it's a project that is executed for the end customer, there might be of course the importance for the billing of the project based on what is agreed. So daily based, half an hour focused on the task. And then just the last slide to share. This is related to this is thinking portfolio specific, just to have an understanding that how we typically see that resource planning and especially time reporting is something that it's connected to other data models, other background systems like payroll, financial system, team collaboration. So the integration is with thinking portfolio. It's easy to done with the REST APIs, but it's also important to understand on resource planning and task management and time management that we do things once in one place as a master, and then let's use an integration or open API to move that data to other system, not to make people to do time sheets or project plans several times in different systems. So good to once architecture for project portfolio and resource management and so on are done is to understand the background system needs there. Thank you for participating and listening to this. And here's my email address. I'm happy to have your questions and comments. And I wish you a effective resource management for the future. Thank you.